Hey, hello, and welcome! New week of streaming Eagle! Congratulations on rising up the first. Congrats. Hello and welcome. Excited for more reading today. I really like where we are in the story. It's fun. It has been fun for a long time though, I would say, but now I just feel a bit more hyped lately about reading. Maybe it is because I've had a long sick break and now I'm back, so I'm just happy to be back. And I'm like, oh my god, reading! A soldier's life, yay! That could be the case as well. Could be the case. But it's also very good. Also very good. And if you missed it, I got permission to read book 4. 4. I was like, which book are we on now? 5. We are on book 4. No, we're on book 3. Sorry. I got permission to read book 4. And I think I got permission to continue on book 5 as well. But he said to me, I was in contact with Sir Always Rolls a 1. And he said, hello by the way. He said that I can only read book 5 when book 6 is out, you know, and so on. So we're always going to be one book behind from what's released. So because I think it was book 6 and then I had to wait for book 5 to book 6 to be released. And that means that I would assume that book 6 is not out yet, which means that we are kinda catching up. Because I have halfway of book 3 left. And then I have Hello Fellow Smile. Then we have book 4. And then we have to wait. And I don't know how fast he is. Like I have no idea how long it's gonna take. I do know that we have a Christmas holiday stop for a while since I'm going away. So that's gonna happen. But otherwise, I might have to find either we play more or I find another novel to read while we wait, basically. Like, so we have a wait novel in between. But that hasn't happened yet. We're not super close. I said we're halfway through book 3. I have all of book 4 to read as well. And by that point, 6 might be out and we can read 5. So, but I'm just putting it out there that we're closer than we've ever been before to catching up with a novel. I can see it happen, which is also scary because what if we've never been there? What do I do then? As I said, do we find a new novel to read in between? Not a new novel, an in between novel, another novel, not a new one. Soldier's Life still going while we wait. Or do we just pause reading and do more gaming instead? We'll see. I don't have any other novel now that I've asked or that I have permission for to read at any point, by the way. I have no other novel. I only have A Soldier's Life that I've asked. Since I knew that it was kind of long. So I was like, there's no point in asking now because then they would be like, so, so I was like, I'll just ask people when it's closer to being reality. But now I just saw a spark of that reality. So, But anyway, today we are still reading A Soldier's Life. So does it really matter today? No, not at all. Trigger warning when I move. Because I was, since it's an AI spider picture down below. So I was like, just to be nice, I will not stay on that picture for the whole recap and start of the stream. So I will just scroll past it and then we will read. If we have people like Eric who hate spiders, for example. So it's like, well, that might not be the nicest freeze frame, but there's only that much that I can do about it, basically. So anyway, are we ready for some recapping? I am ready for some recapping. Oh yeah. Ah, yes, speeders. Speeders. Okay, ready. No, I need to get my headphones a little bit closer so I can hear. Oh. Last time on A Soldier's Life, into the dungeon we went. But did everyone make it? We never saw Castile's group enter the dungeon during the summoner's attack. Eric and Mavius enters together, which means that Scholar Fabian and Brutus are by themselves. Eric says fuck it and decides to reveal to Mavius that his storage space is much bigger than people think and that he has the collector. They proceed to kill some children and a bear, but now they have come to a room full of spiders, and Eric hates spiders. Who fucking doesn't? They're evil motherfuckers. I will drink. Okay. Scrolling past a spider. Let's go. Whee! Chapter 151. Eternal Labyrinth. Spiders. Of course, it would be spiders. The room looked to have a high ceiling, maybe 20 feet. The strands dominated the long room, making it difficult to see the other side. The webbing also created numerous shadows and corners for spiders to hide in. Other than the sticky-looking webs vibrating slightly, I could not see a single spider. Maybe it also confirmed, but had bad news with his observation. I cannot see any movement, but with the thickness of the strands, he paused. They have to be very large spiders. Shit, that had not even occurred to me. The glistening strands were as thick as my wrist. Holy. Maybe we should try the other corridor, I offered to Goliath. No, because they have scary hens that turn you into stone. Maybe it sucked on his teeth. His lips were still purple from the blueberries. This is the third room we have not entered. Fourth, if you add the dark room, he said slowly, considering. We cannot avoid every room, Eric. Spiders are not too difficult. We will check the last corridor first, I said as a compromise. Then we can try one of the rooms. We returned to the Y intersection and followed the other corridor. Mavieith immediately got excited as we approached the end of the corridor. I was focused on the thick, black, oily pools scattered throughout a long, wide room. The reflecting river of light from the ceiling made the pools seem to move. Maybe its excitement was due to the gold statue at the room's far end. I do not think the dungeon could have been more obvious that it was a trap. My eyes focused on the statue, an elf wielding a sword. The statue was gold, and there were no monsters in sight. It would be easy to get close, move it into my dimensional space, and leave. This was probably a safe room, too. That made sense, as only a safe room would have a golden statue. Maybe it bumped me as he stepped past me into the room. My eyes looked up at the Goliath to yell at him for trying to get to the statue first. As soon as my focus left the statue, a fog lifted from my mind. Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is happening? I grabbed the back of Mavieith's leather armor and yanked him hard, pulling him out of the room. Damn, is Eric that strong? Holy, because Mavieith is big. He had only taken a single step inside, and I was fortunate he had not expected my yank. Unfortunately, he stepped back into my boot, which caused me to fall backward, followed by Mavieith. Having a large, odorous Goliath fall on top of you is unpleasant. His weight knocked the air from me, and I was pressed into the floor uncomfortably. Mavieith, I grunted. It is a trap. The statue is affecting your mind. Do not look at it. When Mavieith removed his considerable weight from me, I focused on the chamber floor, healing my knee that had been strained from his weight. The oil slicks on the floor were stretching towards us with amorphous limbs. They reached the archway to the room and flattened against an invisible barrier, unable to leave. Ugh. What the hell is that? I said, while scuttling back and standing. I reminded Mavieith, do not look at the statue. If I had been alone, I might have walked into the room oblivious to the danger. Mavieith shielded his eyes to just look down at the roiling black ooze. I do not know. No. I do not know. Maybe an ooze? I've never heard of a black ooze before. The black elastic mass gave up trying to pass into the corridor and returned to its puddle further in the chamber. I counted 7 of the creatures, and 2 attacked Mavieith as soon as he had entered. Okay, Makiek, hi, bye. Enjoy. I recalled my time in the sewers of Matcha. Are they the same thing as slimes? We saw those in the sewers of Matcha. Mavieith shook his head, turning away from the room. Slimes are harmless in comparison to oozes. Oozes move faster, and once they grapple you, they climb over your body and force themselves into every orifice in your body. Then they digest you from the inside out. Imagining dying that way was not pleasant. I think we will not enter this room either. A little reluctantly, I asked. Spider room? I asked the gray-skinned man, and he gave a curt nod. We quickly returned to the last room. Nothing had changed in the 15 minutes we had been gone. We both stood there, and I considered all the rooms we had encountered so far. Every room was extremely dangerous for the unsuspecting dungeon delver. I was beginning to have doubts about their survivability. It only took one mistake, and it would be the end of us. I took out an apple and tried to throw it into the room. When it passed the archway, it fell rapidly to the stone floor and rolled a few feet, touching the anchor point of one of the strands. All the strands vibrated slightly quicker before settling. Maybe it was staring at the apple, I exclaimed. You cannot make attacks unless you are in the room, and the dungeon creatures apparently cannot leave the room. But do not hold me to that. I know truly little about dungeons. You have killed every dungeon creature you have fought, maybe it said supportively. I am glad it is you with whom I am trapped. I winced, as trapped seemed like the correct word, and I felt guilty that I had thought of Maviet as my taste tester for dungeon produce. Aw, poor Maviet. But I also understand, don't worry. I have been in a dungeon room once where the exit was sealed behind me, Maviet. I do not know if we should enter this room without knowing what we are facing, I said. I was wishing I still had that goblin. I did have another living creature in my dimensional storage, the elf griffin rider. I knew she was still alive, but on the brink of death. For the first time, I thought about possibly healing her and trying to convince her to help. Of course, she was likely to try to kill me first, and then Maviet would also know how powerful my dimensional space was. I will go first and draw out the spiders, Maviet said, gripping the handle of his hammer tightly. Before I could change his mind, he entered the room, and nothing happened. The massive Goliath slowly scanned the maze of webbing. We could not see to the far side of the chamber. Maviet stepped forward and grasped the apple on the floor while remaining alert. He tugged on it, and the skin of the apple peeled off, remaining on the sticky strand. Imagine if the goblin child has like taken over the dungeon now. Like, he's super powerful, he has so many fucking reward chests, and he's like, I own this dungeon. He will be the last boss. The network of strands started to dance. Maviet was frantically searching for the spiders, as was I. A loud snap, and one of the strands lashed toward Maviet. He dodged to his right only to step into another. It stuck to his arm, hampering his movement. The left wall started to move and quickly became recognizable as a massive gray spider, its body larger than a horse. Aye. The spider's body shifted rapidly from the dark gray stone of the wall to an ominous black as it scuttled toward Maviet. The spider seemed too big for this room as Maviet attempted to free himself. Clicking sounds as the spider's legs cadenced on the stone drew my attention from scanning the rest of the room. I did not see any other movement and was hoping this was the only spider. I stepped into the room and removed the spider's head before it could get close enough to attack Maviet. I could not risk Maviet getting poisoned and being incapacitated. My other had bottomed out, but the spider's resistance was not strong. The spider collapsed, and blue, vicious blood oozed from its missing head. Maviet grunted, trying to free his arm, but he clearly noticed the dying spider that was just 10 feet from him. The legs were twitching as it leaked a puddle on the floor. I used the elven runic dagger to cut Maviet free easily. He was clearly speechless from the demonstration of my power. I also got a comment, by the way, on, because last time I had some issues with when Eric put the box on top of one of the child's head, and I was like, what the fuck did he just do? I didn't understand. And then we had Lucasito in the comments write me that Eric calls the action of marking something with his dimensional space a box, like when he marks the space where he extracts the hearts of enemies or the heads of creatures. When he said he put a box over the elf's head, he didn't mean to cover her face. He says it because he can see the box. And apparently this was explained at the beginning and on one other occasion. And of course, I had fucking forgotten all about that. So I was like, well, that makes way more sense. Because I thought about that now since we took off another person's, I mean, a spider's head. So that's what happened last time. If anyone else was confused, which I doubt, but maybe some. I mean, I cannot have been alone, right? Like, how it was written was was confusing. But yeah, also thank you so much for that comment. It really helped me understand what the fuck what just happened. So now I'm a bit more like, okay. Anything useful to harvest on the spider? I asked the Goliath casually. Eric, did you? How can you? He stuttered, trying to find the words. I gave him time to puzzle everything and got to work. I pulled the essence collector out from the minimal pack I was carrying. I approached the spider to a dumbfounded Mavieth and used the collector. The dense blue smoke rapidly formed a glossy black apex essence. Ether channeling. Ooh. Mavieth was still stunned, so I started looking for the reward chest. Of course, it was barely visible through the maze of crisscrossing webbing. I used the elven dagger to cut away strands. When it contacted the strands, it reminded me of a hot knife touching plastic, easily burning through. The room was about 30 by 60, and I was confused. Every dungeon room I had ever been in had something for the creature to eat. As I cleared this room to reach the chest, there was nothing but webbing. The chest was large, 3 foot long, but still solid stone. Once again, I shattered it with the pommel of the dagger, eagerly anticipating the loot. I could see how the danger and lure of treasure could be appealing. A shiny short sword sat among the silver coins with an ether restorative potion. I was more interested in the blade. The hilt was designed in the image of a spider, with the legs splaying out to make the guard, and all along the blade were little etchings of spiders. Give it to me, Biff. It looked like they had hatched at the hilt and run down both sides of the 2-foot blade. 20 silver coins, maybe, and a dungeon blade. I stood and turned to face my companion, who was still processing what had just happened. Maybe, is there anything we can harvest from the spider? I repeated my question. Maybe tore his eyes from me to look at it. It is a gargantuan spider, non-poisonous, so no venom sacs. He stared back at it, realizing the fangs were gone with the head. The spinnerets, but I am not familiar with harvesting them, I shrugged. Delmar had harvested spinnerets in my first dungeon. Eric, do you have void magic? Maybe its deep voice questioned me. Ooh, here we go. Would that be a problem? I asked, neither confirming nor denying. Void magic seemed to be what people thought my power came from after seeing it. Maybe it seemed to consider. Void mages are regularly just as much as necromancers, he stated, not answering my question. I think all void mages in the Italian Empire need to be in service to the Emperor. Well, can you keep my secret? I asked, still not offering him the complete truth. I am not Italian. I have no allegiance to the Emperor, the large man stated. I nodded, thinking that it was the best I was going to get from him. I can only do this once, I pointed at the spider. It usually takes me about 2 hours to recover enough ether to do it again. Feels about half that time in the dungeon though. Maybe I was giving him too much information, but we were going to be fighting together for a time in this dungeon. Maybe its mind was still turning. Is that how you killed the female manticore? His eyes suddenly went wide. And the wyvern! It had only taken maybe minutes to piece everything together. Yes. Do you want this short sword? I loved the spider-themed weapon. It was likely a runic weapon. What do you think the spider was eating to stay alive? Maybe its focus gradually came back to the conversation. Gargantuan spiders can hibernate for years. If there are any egg sacs here, we should destroy them. This one was just an adolescent. They can get much larger after years of molting. Molting? No. It's nice that Eric is finally opening up to someone. I think so too. I just wish he could say more. But then, I mean, because now he's like snippets, and I like that as well. Like, it gets more interesting this way. I understand that. But I was like, I just want to be like, this is how it is. We searched the room but did not find any egg sacs or molted exoskeletons. The room also had no exits, so it looked like we were not going to solve the mystery of the spider chamber. After Maviet declined it, I sent the spider blade to my dimensional space. I was a little unhappy that Maviet appeared more wary about me as we left. We should rest. We can head back to the safe room where we entered, I suggested. We can stop and collect more blueberries, Maviet nodded, licking his lips. Two elven children were seated among the bushes as we approached the room. The shapeshifters had been revived. It had been over a day since we had killed them. Maybe I still need about an hour before I can do my trick again. The two elves walked to the entrance, the girl's eyes narrowing at me accusatorily. Looks like they're back to play again. I was completely taken off guard. Wait, you remember us? I mean, is it that weird? I mean, in a sense, yes. But they've also said that dungeons have some type of conscience, right? The dungeons are more like a living being, so. And he was like, oh, he even asked them in the beginning, like, are you the dungeon playing tricks on us or some shit? Like, are you the dungeon speaking to us? Blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's still surprising in a sense. We will see if the elven child dungeon creature answers us and if it can be told the truth. Who knows? Chapter 152. Q&A. Oh, let's go. Let's have a Q&A with the dungeon children, shall we? The elf girl was speaking Latin. Many thoughts raced through my mind, and none of them were pleasant. Maybe I don't know about this. If they remember us each time. Maybe it did not seem as intimidated by the shape changers as I was. I am healed this time. I can manage one by myself, he declared confidently, his voice echoing in the hall. Yeah, but that also means that they can learn and that they know how you kill them and stuff. In a blink, the boy's eyes turned yellow and stayed that way. He flashed Maviet a toothy smile. The big one thinks he can beat me again. His skin stretched and his clothing ripped as he grew to full height. He did not resemble the creature we fought before, but instead was a mirror image of Maviet, albeit nude and immodest. Maviet suddenly looked uncomfortable, his hands clenching around the handle of his hammer. I do not know about this, Eric. Perhaps we should try the wine room next. His voice was now uncertain as he faced himself as an opponent. My focus remained on the creatures. I worried that these two could continuously learn from us, preparing better to fight us each time until we eventually lost. I had an unusual thought. Maybe they would not tell the truth, but perhaps they could share something about the dungeon. I recalled something the girl had said. You lied. There was no treasure in the dark room. I never entered that room, but she did not know that. The creepy elf girl's face twisted into a horrid sneer. We do not lie. She pointed at me. Oh, did you not bring your mining pick? Her tone was mocking. Maviet's unease at seeing himself did not prevent his curiosity from following the conversation. Mining pick? We traveled this deep into the labyrinth and come unprepared. The girl laughed unnaturally, openly taunting us. I grasped at the thread in her words. Deep? Where are we in the labyrinth? Are there levels? The other Maviet returned to being an elf boy. Do not tell them anything. Make them pay for the knowledge, he told the girl. The girl nodded energetically at her companion. We want the red apples. I am sick of the berries. Bring us 20 apples and we will tell you where you are. Wow, what a standard fucking quest. Okay, quest received. Bring the elf girl 20 apples so we can learn more about the dungeon. Yeah. Maybe it was about to say something, but I raised my hand to negotiate. 20 apples is a lot, and the bear does not like to give them away without a fight. 5 questions and 5 apples for each answer. If I do not like the completeness of the answer, no apples. The boy turned to the girl, and they deliberated loudly. He's trying to trick us again. He will give us the apples and then steal them back after killing us again. You could always let us pass without fighting. I offered, interrupting them. Those are not the rules. Break the rules and we will never be made whole again, the girl said angrily. I produced 5 apples in my hands to entice them. Then eat them after you answer my question. They looked at each other and then back at me. The girl's eyes locked on the apples, its desire clear. You are near the bottom of the labyrinth, with not at the bottom. But not at the bottom, she blurted. That was a cryptic answer. What did it mean to be near the bottom? We just entered the labyrinth in the room down that corridor. I pointed down the corridor we had arrived in. They are lost. They know not where they are, the girl danced, mocking me. No more questions until the apples are received. I felt I had not received a complete answer, but it was the best to build trust. I rolled the 5 apples into the room, and they snatched them suspiciously. Think they are poisoned? The girl asked the boy. If they are, then it is a good trick on us, he replied, his teeth becoming needle-like as he devoured the first apple, noisily chewing and savoring the flesh. The girl, not to be outdone, also grew sharp teeth to attack her own apple. The 5 apples did not last long. Juices dribbled down their bodies in a gross display of gluttony. Seeing how much they enjoyed them, I produced 5 more. Next question. How big is the shimmering labyrinth? I hope to get a clear idea so that maybe being near the bottom would make more sense. The girl said, It has been too long since we wandered the dungeon. It is wider than you think and deeper too. The boy added, It continues to grow, so you never know how big it is. Now the apples. His greedy eyes focused on them. I frowned at their vague answer. You do not answer my question to my satisfaction. No apples. The boy rasped out angrily. I told you we shouldn't trust them. He fumed before calming down and trying to offer a better answer. When we wandered the dungeon, there were hundreds of rooms. Right, left, straight, down, and all around. We ended up here eventually, trapped. Maybe its deep voice reminded me he was behind me. The dungeon did not create you? The girl was frustrated. Another question. No apples for the last. They are tricking us. To mollify the girl, I rolled the apples into the room again. A grotesque display of their consumption happened once more. When they finished, I pointed at Mavis. Answer his question next. The shape-changers looked uncertainly at each other. The boy finally answered. We entered with the elves in the guise of one of their number to seek refuge from the poison. The boy shifted into an adult elf. They discovered our true nature, and we killed them but could not escape the dungeon. I mean, if they just came in like Eric and Mavis did and everyone else, then maybe some of them would actually be stuck in the dungeon. That's not very nice. And I don't like that it keeps expanding. Only bad things so far. Nothing good. The girl shifted into an adult as well. We died elsewhere, but woke, trapped in this dungeon, never able to leave. Okay, so maybe you have to die first. I mean, then you're dead, and then you're trapped forever. Bound for eternity to the cursed dungeon, forced to kill interlopers. My body trembled at the thought of being cursed to live forever in a single dungeon room. I was sure I had new fodder for my nightmares. I absently rolled the apples forward, thinking. Maviat asked another question while I pondered, his voice uncertain. Are the creatures stronger the deeper in the dungeon you go? Oh, imagine if they have to... Imagine if, like, someone... When we meet someone, they've already died, and they've turned into a dungeon room, and we're gonna have to kill them every time we want to pass. And then we, like, constantly have to kill, like, Brutus, you know, or something. And it's like, oh, now we have to kill Brutus again. Like, oh, that will turn you crazy. The woman wiped sugary drool from her mouth. Of course. Foolish question. And now you owe us more apples. What was the question? Are the creatures stronger than even dark people? Yes. Okay. Maybe it was a good question, I reassured him. It meant that the rooms we were exploring were much more dangerous than those higher up in the dungeon. It gave me hope that some of the company might have survived. I gave them their prize, and the adult elf male smiled with his needle-like teeth. You have but one question left. But I have more than just 5 apples left, I returned his toothy smile. The woman answered, holding her stomach. I am full and no longer desire apples. We will answer your last question as agreed. Maybe it's let me think, I warned the Goliath. If we only had one question left, I wanted to make it count. Maybe the shape changers could be reasoned with again for more answers. I finally asked, can we rest safely in the corridors between the rooms? The male laughed disgustingly at the question. They enter a dungeon and do not know the rules. Foolish human and large gray man. The woman joined him in mocking us, but they were the real fools here, having been trapped. Still, I wanted an answer. The pair calmed down, reverting to their child forms. The girl answered, still giggling at our lack of knowledge. Only restrooms are safe. If you rest in the passages, she locked eyes with me, and stop making progress for a day, then we will be free to come and find you. The girl licked her lips, and I shivered. I gave them their apples. Would you be interested in some fish for more answers? I offered. Their greedy eyes focused on the fillet I produced. The ceiling of the shapeshifter's chamber changed to a flashing red pattern. They looked up, worried expressions on their faces. We have completed the bargain, and it looks like another bargain will not be struck, the boy said. Did that mean the dungeon was watching us? Still, I felt the answers we had gotten were worth the fish. I tossed it into the room, to their surprise. The two elf children fought over it like quarreling siblings, shoveling chunks of raw fish into their mouths and trying to deny the other a bite. The brief fight was violent, and the two were bleeding from minor scratches at the end. I thought they were full. The girl addressed us when the fish was gone, shreds of fish stuck in her needle teeth. Flesh is so much better than apples. Maybe it is time you come in and play with us so we can taste yours. The ceiling faded from the red shivering to return to normal. It appeared the dungeon had warned the shapeshifters of their behavior. Maybe we need to get back to the safe room to rest. Agreed. His deep voice echoed reassuringly behind me. I will take the boy. I am ready when you are. Can you two back up to the center of the room again? I asked the shapechangers. They started to shake their heads no, malicious smiles on their faces in anticipation. I gave you the fish without compensation, I told them. Reluctantly, the two children started walking backwards toward the center of the room, conceding that the fish had been worth this small compromise. Mavius and I entered the room, but the children morphed into their large, monstrous bodies and did not rush to attack this time. Mavius swung his hammer lightly in his grip. My black blade and round shield were ready for an attack, but it never came. The two of them were studying us, trying to learn from us. I took a step toward the corridor to the safe room. If we did not have to fight them, all the better. My action caused the creatures to sprint towards us. I took the closer one's head, causing the other one to try to flee after suddenly being outnumbered. Mavius was not having it though. He thrust the head of his hammer into its face. Facial bones audibly cracked as its face compressed. The strike stunned the creature as Mavius' impressive strength was on display. I circled behind the dazed creature and targeted its hamstring, opening the flesh and cutting deeply into the muscle. With no mouth, the creature could not scream. It gained enough awareness to pivot and try to backhand me with its powerful arms. I had already retreated, and Mavius' hammer was on a downswing. He missed the top of its head, but caught its neck and shoulder. The head of the hammer was embedded 4 inches deep in the grotesque figure, and a loud crack could be heard from the snapping of bone, forcing it to its knees. I did not hesitate to step forward and behead it. I did not hesitate to behead the child. We were both breathing heavily from the adrenaline and nodded to each other. It had been easier than expected, and we both came out unharmed. Mavius, collect the blueberries, and I will help after checking the chest. The chest was in the same location as the first time, nestling in one of the blueberry bushes. It had 36 large silver coins, and, again, another apex essence. The color was different this time, and it was light yellow, an essence of insight. Was this a joke by the dungeon after we gained some knowledge from the shapeshifters? Alright. He's on a children's spree, oh my god. I used the essence collector on the shapeshifters, but was saddening to see they both yielded just a major essence with the same shifting colors, though it was still a boon. The first time they had yielded apex essences. Maybe it was because we had killed them so quickly after the first time. What were these dungeon rules they mentioned? I started helping Maviet harvest the berries. Maviet, what essence do you want? I have a few magical essences, a minor essence of quickness and an apex essence of insight. Quickness, he said immediately. Being faster than your opponent is the best way to win a fight, he stated confidently. I handed him the small green sphere as soon as my other recovered enough to retrieve it. I also stored everything in my space. Maviet stated the obvious. After we rest in the safe room, we will have to fight them again to explore the dungeon. I know. I figured eventually the shapeshifters would find a way to make the fight more even if they recalled past fights. We finished harvesting the berries, and I relieved myself in the room. Piss in the kids' room. Having such a large bowel movement after so long was an odd feeling. I had a few wax leaves to clean up, but I wished I had more. I left the head of the shapeshifter on the mossy floor. On a whim, I tried to use the collector on it. It pulled no essence from the head, which was slightly disappointing. I walked with Maviet back to the first room we entered. The familiar elven script was on the wall. The floor of the room where we had defecated was clean. The dungeon was cleaning up after us. The floor, anyway. The exit was still here, mocking us with a false offer of freedom. Could we exit and re-enter before the specters swarmed us? It was a thought, but it was best to wait, as the summoner was still out there, and it had only been 2 days. We were exhausted, and while Maviet prepared dinner, I set up our bedrolls. I figured it had been over a day since my last essence, and I assumed the glossy black apex essence would enhance my ether channeling. It worked quickly, giving me an intense awareness of the ether around me. The dungeon almost felt like it was forged from pure essence before the feeling vanished. Sippy? Maviet grumbled. If we had a large pot, I could make 1 large batch of apple berry jam. I surprised Maviet again by taking out the cast iron cauldron I had taken from a Legion Hall long ago. The thing must weigh 70 pounds with the lid, and I took it to use as an improvised weapon, not for its intended purpose. Maviet shook his head in disbelief. What else do you have in there, Eric? I mumbled. This and that, but did not specify. Maviet shrugged, accepting, and took the pot to work on his jam. Maviet started talking as he worked. It is too bad we got separated from Brutus and the Scholar. Their help would have been most welcome. Just the 2 of us are going to have a challenging time working through the rooms down here and finding the others. Maviet was stewing blueberries and apples together to make jam. He was also doing his best to use the last bits of the rations from the elven packs. Now that we knew we had food sources, we could be more liberal with our meals to restore our bodies. After much internal deliberation, I finally revealed something to Maviet. Oh, okay. Oh. You know, Maviet, I may know someone who could help. Oh my god! Not sure if she would be too willing, though. Oh my god! Maviet's eyes rose in surprise. Who? Oh my god, it's gonna take Rayleigh out. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, do it, Eric. Oh my god, do it, Eric. Do it. Oh, wow. Funny name. Chapter 153. Schrodinger's Elf. Maviet's question hung in the air. Who? It was not a simple question for me to answer. I was going to have to reveal to him that it was not void magic that helped me kill monsters. I probably should have prepared him better for this and trusted the Goliath earlier. You know how you thought I had powerful void magic? Well, I don't have any void magic. I can remove part of a creature by placing it in my dimensional space. Maviet's face was an unreadable mask as a large iron pot bubbled in front of him, giving the air a fruity scent reminiscent of candy. Maviet? I tried to get the attention of the Goliath, who was still processing my words. Minutes passed before he began to stir the syrupy hot jam. I do not know much about magic, he finally said, but your statement seems too fantastical. Okay, I was never going to tell Maviet I was an otherworlder. He seemed a bit broken, struggling to fathom the extent and power of my spell form. Oh, never say never, Eric. I opened my dimensional space and rearranged it slightly to make the elven tablet reader appear next to him. It was 7 feet away from me. Maybe it jumped a little bit, but eyed me slowly, putting the pieces together. A prolonged silence followed as he stirred the pot occasionally. Every once in a while he would look at me or the table. He finally said, "So, if you can pull a part of a monster into your dimensional space, can you pull an entire monster or person into it?" I nodded and confirmed. Yes. I let maybe think for a moment before he asked, "Could you put me in your dimensional space?" "Probably, if you were sitting down," I said, cracking a grin. I partly wanted him to think the space smaller than it actually was, and it was also just a jab at his immense size. "So who is in there now?" Maybe it finally asked, moving the cauldron off the thermal stone. I'm so excited. I winced slightly, having to tell this story. Back in Matcha, when the Bardaradians attacked, one of their Griffin riders crashed into the city. I was sent with some of the company to make sure they were dead. "She has been in there the entire time," Raven exclaimed. I winced. "Well, no, I put her in there when she was casting a fireball at me. I released her and the fireball at an enemy a few days later. I thought the explosion had killed her," I explained. Mavid shook his head, interrupting me. "That is not how magic works. You cannot steal another's magic and store it." "Really?" I asked, confused. "That was how it happened." Maybe it seemed uncertain. "I do not know. I just have never heard of anyone doing that. So she's in there now, burned and suffering." "Time does not pass in my dimensional space," I reminded him, and he nodded. "Actually, I left her in Matcha, and her people healed her. Then fate brought her into my path again. She was with the summoner student when we caught up to them. Sebastian's drake crushed her in his jaws and slammed her into a rock. I put her in my space to save her for later." You can't say that. What do you mean? Save her for later? That sounded bad coming out of my mouth as Mavid's face scrunched in disgust. Yeah, I agree. What the fuck, Eric? I tried to explain quickly. I intended to use the collector on her corpse. Constantine and Sebastian were close, so I could not reveal the collector. I learned that if I store dead bodies, I can get the essence later. Wow, nice save. Maybe it seemed somewhat placid, and I wondered just what he thought of me now. He asked, "How do you know she is alive?" My ether bottomed out. She resisted being placed in the dimensional space. That means her ether core is still active. At least, that is my guess, I told him truthfully. Maybe it nodded and we started to eat. I'm being fucking... There is this tiny little fruit fly that's in my fucking face. It is because I have a bitch ass. I don't think I got it. It's so small. It's because I have a fucking bell pepper plant like pretty close next to me. And these motherfuckers just keep on surviving. I swear to God. They're so annoying. There's like one. Anyway. That is my guess, I told him. Maybe it nodded, and we started to eat. It's in my face again. Okay, just... Fuck. Now my chair is stuck in my microphone. Okay. Where are you? Where are you? Okay, I will not sit and wait for it. It can be anywhere. Annoying. Okay. And now I have to yawn. Wow. Okay. Can you please? Maybe it nodded, and we started to eat. We dipped everything in the hot jam before it yelled. As we finished off the loose rations, maybe it asked another question. "How is the mostly dead elf going to help us? Do you have another healing potion?" I dipped some jerky in the fruit sauce and savored it while chewing. No, I don't. I was hoping to find another healing potion, but you can see why I'm hesitant to bring her out. She's not going to be very happy with me, even if she lives. I would not be very happy with you either, Maviet said, chewing on some hard cheese. Is she a good fighter? I thought back to our encounters. She was good with her blades and not magic that could easily be turned against me. I suddenly imagined being fireballed in the back and reconsidered this idea. Yes, she can fight and cast fireballs. Maybe it seemed to consider. Perhaps it is best if I try to reason with her when you release her from your imprisonment. Goliaths are known to be a reasonable and trustworthy people. It appeared Mavis had already decided it was a good idea. Maybe he was just getting sick of my company. I sipped some wine from the bottle. Imprisonment is a pretty harsh word to describe it. You placed her there against her will and held her without a chance of freedom. That describes it aptly. His deep voice carried strong disapproval. Then I remembered the orc slavers had killed his sister, and I was sort of enslaving the elf. I could have let her die, I countered his disapproval. He seemed to ponder this for a long time. Sorry for being upset. You were enemies. You did nothing wrong. And now you plan to save her to make amends. The tension in the room lessened greatly. I don't want Baby to be angry with Eric, but I would also be angry with Eric. So I understand. It's fair for Baby to be, but I don't want them to be. Soon we were making our way to sleep. I held the amulet in my hand, needing to reference the books Castile had created in the dreamscape. Mavieth, the amulet is in this hand. If you need to wake me, just take it. Mavieth's eyes studied the amulet hopefully. Can I? He was asking to use it with a pleading face. Not something you want to see on a Goliath. Next time we sleep, I confirmed. I entered the dreamscape. Searching through Castile's books proved extremely useful, as one of the books was on arcane scripts from dungeons. The other potion I received from the Red Bear was an Ether restorative potion. I knew these potions were extremely rare and valuable, since alchemists had trouble brewing stable versions of them. Even the simplest Ether restorative required a Tier 3 alchemist. It took time to find a reference table for essences. The book contained a whole section on the history of the collectors. The first collector was found in a dungeon thousands of years ago, and they were extremely rare. The First Legion saw the immense value in them and focused on recreating the devices with their artificers. They produced hundreds of them, but the master artificers capable of crafting them were assassinated in subsequent wars. Thus, the number of collectors became limited and rarely found in dungeons. I matched up the essences with the chart to see what I had in my storage. Minor Essence, Azure, blue with white swirls, air affinity. Apex Essence, Azure, blue with white swirls, air affinity. 13 minor essences. Dark green, quickness attribute. 2 apex essences, rainbow swirling colors, illusion affinity. 2 major essences, rainbow swirling colors, illusion affinity. Apex essence, black with swirling red and orange, fire affinity. Apex essence, pale yellow, insight attribute. I had compiled quite a collection of essences in the dungeon in a short time. I was eyeing the minor air affinity essence. When I took the Apex Earth essence, I had 0 affinity, and it was painful to add the new affinity to my other core. Maybe the minor air essence would not be as horrific. Castile left a lot of books, but I focused my time in the dreamscape on learning the runic script. It was a headache since it was essentially memorizing over 700 symbols and their rough meanings, which only became clear when you chained them together. The patterns were intricate as well. Fortunately, most potions required only a sequence of 3 symbols to identify the contents. Within the symbols, I could also see many geometric patterns in the spell forms I had imprinted on my core. Dungeon script was a language of magic. I was not going to be able to draw the symbols, but I could at least study them to recognize them. I created flashcards and worked for almost 8 hours. I cleaned up the dreamscape, moving everything to the scorpion room and sealing it away. Mavis was going to use the device next, and my level of trust with him was reaching a point where I would let him use it without my presence. I left the dreamscape to find Mavis already awake. He seemed in a cheerful mood. I used the reader. Can you read it to me? He asked. I moved the reader and tried to reach Mavis the elven numerical symbols as I read them off. Ha! I moved the reader and tried to teach Mavis the elven numerical symbols as I read them off. Fortunately, they were in a base 10 as well. As expected, his magical affinities had not changed, and his potentials remained the same. So everything is the same. What? Or he got +3 strength, +4 power, quickness 2, endurance 3, constitution 1. Okay, yeah. Nice. He wanted quickness, and he has more power, which is good. This is great. It looks like your body is recovering after being starved for so long. It had only been just over a day and a few meals, but maybe its physical stats were rising rapidly. I figured mine would be doing the same. He paid close attention to the numerical symbols, and I thought he would be able to read it on his own next time. I stood and started to help with the cleanup. I was not going to use the reader, as they might want to know what mine were, and my magic affinities needed to remain secret for now. We had almost 5 gallons of jam. I just moved the entire cauldron to my dimensional space to store the appleberry jam. I placed almost everything in my space, leaving us both with small packs of items we needed for quick access. I felt the most well-rested and satiated I had been in weeks. It felt strange because I was trapped deep in an extremely dangerous dungeon. We walked to the chamber with the shapeshifters, and I felt great relief wash over me as they were nowhere in sight. How long has it been since we killed them? I asked Mavis. Mavis was still scanning the room. Just over half a day. They're shapeshifters though. They may be hiding us somewhere else, as something else. They can do that? I also searched my memory, trying to identify anything that seemed out of place. I do not know, but anything seems possible after what you told me yesterday, his voice echoed in the room. We studied the area for 15 minutes before stepping in, and nothing happened. The bodies of the shapeshifters had not vanished and were just over the rise in the moss, already desiccated. The bushes were full of tiny berries, replacing what we had harvested. We quickly refilled the water barrel and moved into the corridor toward the fire bear. Oddly, I was disappointed not to have the chance to talk with the shapeshifters again. They had given us valuable information, and I hoped to tease out more knowledge, even if the dungeon did not want them to cooperate. We would see them again if we had to return to the safe room. I was gonna say, like, you probably have to go back to the safe room anyway, if they don't find a new one. Of course, today. But then they would have to go through them anyway, so I would rather fight them just once. But then if they kill them and come back, they won't be there, so I guess it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The fire bear was eating apples of the tree when we approached. Maybe it was already excited. Such a majestic creature. The fur would make a spectacular cloak. And that was some of the best bear meat I have ever eaten. The fire bear was eyeing us, but not overly concerned. I studied it for a long time. It looks smaller. Actually, I'm sure. The last one was larger. Maybe it is not the same one. That would be different from when the dungeon revives the shapeshifters. Well, it could be different because the shapeshifters came from outside the dungeon. Maybe this bear was created by the dungeon. So maybe that's the difference. Because I don't think a bear walked into a dungeon. I mean, maybe. Fuck do I know, but I doubt it. Do not damage the pelt. I want it in one piece. Maybe its eagerness was more focused on harvesting the bear than my suppositions about how the dungeon worked. Wait here. I stepped into the room, immediately drawing the shimmering red bear's attention. It cocked its head, its eyes becoming a deeper red as it charged. I removed most of his brain from 15 feet away and sidestepped as the body slid forward on the soft earth. Maybe it stepped into the room, his jaw open. He walked to the bear that was spilling blood steadily onto the ground. Seeing he could not speak, I told him, You can start harvesting the bear. I will check the reward chest. I pointed to the stone chest atop the mound. A moment later, I was shattering the thin stone casing and was relieved to see the 2 familiar potions among the silver coins. The other restorative and the greater healing potion. Maybe it found his voice after being stunned at my display. Eric, come over here. I will show you the proper way to harvest a bear. I sighed, gathering up the coins and potions to join me with. I would send them to my dimensional space when my others sufficiently recovered. With the healing potion, releasing the Griffin Rider was a viable option now. Oh! I can't believe it. They're gonna do it. They're gonna release her. And that sounded like. But she can read Elvish as well, because she's an elf. Not that we've found any use for that so far, because Eric can also read Elvish. Somewhat. If anything, it would be that they go back to safe room and he's like, oh my god, you read it wrong. This is what it actually says. So, but I mean, so the Elvish doesn't really help, I guess. Well, chapter 154. Taking time to smell the flowers. Maybe was excited when I removed the collector and brain from my inventory, stating that it would be useful for tanning the hide. I helped him prepare the bear after harvesting its essence. It was a major essence for fire affinity, a downgrade from the apex fire essence I had gotten from the first fire bear. He was meticulous in his harvest, not wanting to waste anything, and I learned a lot from him about processing a kill. He must have asked me every 5 minutes if my dimensional space could hold everything. After stripping the pelt, he did his best to stretch it on an apple tree. As soon as the stakes were cut, I sent them to my dimensional space to preserve them. We should also spend half a day harvesting the bear before leaving the room, I suggested after a few hours. Mavid considered this and nodded. If the shapeshifters do not reappear after half a day, then I think that is wise. Where are we going from here? To the vine room, I think. It seems the safest option to explore. I revealed my thoughts, and Mavid nodded. As we processed the bear, we were getting 3 weeks worth of meat from this one kill for the two of us. I decided maybe it could have the organs when we cooked them. I never got used to the chewiness of heart muscle, the shocky richness of liver, or the off taste of kidneys. Maybe if I were still starving, I would try it, but with all the steaks, it was a hard pass for me. We collected apples as well, maybe 200 before leaving. We munched on apples as we walked out of the room. Between bites, I told Maviet. There was a healing potion in the reward chest, but I am not planning to use it on the Griffin Rider just yet. If you are injured again, I would rather have it for you. Maviet finishes apple core and all. Apple, core and all. I will try not to get injured again then. I just chuckled at his logic. Maybe there will be another healing potion next time we harvest the fire bear. The loot chest was exactly the same as the first time, I said as we approached the vine room. The room looked the same. 3 alcoves were covered in thick vines with bright red flowers with yellow veins. There were no signs of an exit. I will go in and retreat if needed. Stay here. I stepped into the room and was slightly upset when nothing happened. With the second step, I noticed a fragrant scent filling the air, probably coming from the flowers. I took another step into the room, eyeing the vines, and prepared an air shield. My breathing became slightly strained after a minute, so I sent healing ether to my lungs, planning to run. I did not detect any damage to them. Then my eyelids started to feel heavy. I stumbled backward, slightly unsteady on my feet. All I wanted to do was lie down and fall asleep. I stumbled into Mavian in the corridor, and he supported me, worry on his face. What is wrong, Eric? He shook me a little, my armor rattling from the force. Where is the healing potion? He was getting panicky, but my mind was foggy, and I closed my eyes to sleep. Water splashed on my face, and I woke up sputtering. I relieved Maviet stood over me. I was praying to Pluto for you, Eric. You were unconscious for almost an hour. I shook my head, my thoughts quickly clearing. I think the pollen from the red flowers puts you to sleep. I shook my body. I'm not injured, and I'm breathing fine. I sat up and noticed Maviet had dragged me about 50 feet from the entrance. My eyes had to do a double take at what I saw. The vines from the vine room were 20 feet down the corridor, covering every wall. Maviet answered. They did not move fast, but after you left, the vines stirred and followed you out of the room. I thought creatures could not leave the rooms. I hypothesized. I think the dungeon lets the creatures pursue us once we enter a room. It is the only thing that makes sense. I reconsidered. Maybe only plants can leave rooms. I don't know. I remember that when I released the goblin, the bear did not pursue it down the corridor it fled into. Yeah, and the ooze, right? Maybe they never stepped into that room, actually, now when I think about it. I was frustrated with not knowing the dungeon rules. Then again, maybe each dungeon had different rules. The vines are slowly retreating, Maviet noted, and I focused on them. It was hard to discern movement with the flowing hypnotic lights on the floor and ceiling, but I think he was correct. Perhaps the vines could pursue me because I was unconscious and vulnerable. I told Mavieth what I had learned from the room. The room had a sickly sweet scent. I think it is from the flower pollen. My lungs burned for a moment, and then I got really sleepy and could not help but fall asleep. Mavieth's deep voice intoned. A really vile trap. The vines probably pull you into an alcove to digest your corpse. I heard of such plants in the jungles on the southern part of the continent. Well, you could use the fucking fireball and burn them. I nodded, standing, and thought I had a bestiary in my book collection in my dreamscape. Most were in Elven script that would take me days to translate. Well, even more use for the elf. Sinja had some jungles, and I remembered paging through the local threats in case someone questioned me. I had skimmed over the flora and did not recall these particular vines. Next time I was in the dreamscape, I would try to find out what the vines were. I gave Maviet the unwelcome news. It looks like our only option is the room with the cockatrices. Cockatrices? Fucking chickens. Maviet's large body recoiled when I said it. He had not explored only 3 rooms. The gold statue room with the black oozes. The dark room that the shapeshifter said we needed a mining pick for. And the massive cockatrice room with the waterfall. Eric, I do not know. Mavieth hedged, still fearful of the oversized chickens. I will come up with a plan. For now, let us sit outside the bear room and watch it until the fire bear responds. I want to see it with my own eyes, I informed Mavieth. He nodded happily, delaying our trip to the cockatrice chamber. We started to prepare a big meal, cooking in the corridor with one of us watching the den entrance. While Mavieth was on watch, I slipped into the dreamscape and quickly located an entry for the vines in the Tsingja book. The book was written by an explorer named Dana Cricket, an old wizard explorer. He had studied the vines intensively, and the passage he wrote was informative. Okay. The sleeper vine is easily spotted from a distance by its bright flowers with veins of white or yellow. Okay, so that's what it is then. The flowers give off a sickly sweet scent that lulls the unsuspecting creature to sleep for up to 3 hours. Once the creature falls asleep, the vines drag it into their maw and restrain it with layers of vines. Thick thorns pierce the flesh and ingest digestive acid. When the prey wakes, they have awareness but feel no pain as their body is metabolized over the course of 2 days. Repeated exposure to the pollen of the sleeper vine allows one to build up immunity. Ooh! The beast tribes of Quinonqua expose their children to the flowers early so they can resist the effects if they encounter them. I bet, like infants when they're screaming, instead of getting like a fucking, what do you call it in English, binky? You just like, here's some fucking sleep powder, here you go. There are numerous alchemical uses for the flower and the plant's small amount of nectar and pollen. See Gundry's alchemical plants of the kingdom of Caesinia for more information. I did not have that reference book, but at least I had good news for Mavieth when I exited the dreamscape. He was still watching the earthen mound's entrance. Mavieth, good news. We can build up immunity to the effects of the red vine flowers with repeated exposure. Mavieth was chewing on a bear kidney he had just fried, his eyes focused on the entrance. We should do that instead of trying to kill the cockatrices. But one mistake and I will be plant food, I noted. Do you not trust me to pull you to safety? Mavieth's deep voice sounded hurt. Are you really trying to guilt trip me right now? I countered. Guilt? Trip? Mavieth went into contemplation mode to puzzle out my colloquialism. I'm sorry, Eric, I do not understand, he finally said, giving up. It does not matter. I will be the bait as I am accustomed to it. But right now, the fire bear is back, I noted, pointing and standing. Mavieth's eyes flashed to the den. A day, give or take an hour, the Goliath stated confidently. Hopefully, every room is the same, so we can prepare, I said, watching the bear exit and shake its coat. The fur rippled, looking like flames, and I judged the bear to be the same size as the one we had killed a day ago. Well, big guy, it looks like we're going to be eating a lot of bear meat in the future, I stated as I pulled the collector from my dimensional space and handing it to Maviet to hold onto while I dealt with the bear. I stepped into the room, and the bear locked its focus on me. I casually walked up to it, and it seemed more curious about me than ready to fight. Its eyes started to glow a fiery red, but those eyes were stumbling in my dimensional space. I get it, maybe it rushed into the room. I could eat this bear meat every day. I still don't understand your aversion to the kidneys. These are the tastiest I've ever eaten, he explained excitedly, handing the collector back to me while reaching for his skinning knife. Mavius attacked the bear with his skinning knife while I shattered the stone reward box. I had focused on the earthen mound, and this box just appeared in the blink of an eye. Maybe it was teleported by the dungeon with displacement magic. Maybe it was not concerned with the chest, as his prize was the bear. Sifting through the debris, I gathered up the silvery coins and the 2 potions, one healing and one other recovery. I was pleased the loot had remained the same. I returned the other recovery potion in my hand. It was valuable, but I now had 3 of them. I broke the seal and drained it, not because I needed to, but so I would know what to expect when I used one in combat. The feeling was akin to drinking a hot beverage rapidly. The heat branched out from my stomach through my limbs and kept going. I realized the potion contained more ether than my core could contain, and bled away from my body into the environment once my core was full. It was wasted on someone with a small core like mine. On the bright side, it could quickly recharge my dimensional ability. I spent some time making one of the potions easily accessible under my armor. I then harvested another major fire essence from the bear. Maybe it watched in fascination as the collector worked, and I snatched essence before it rolled onto the ground. However, when I offered it to Mavieth, he was only interested in the essence of quickness. The apples were back as well, and I decided to pick them and let Mavieth have all the fun processing the bear. I still had dried blood under my fingernails and in every crevice of my armor. I felt very unsanitary and smelled worse. The waterfall pond in the cockroach's chamber looked very appealing to me at the moment. With our luck, there was probably a 50-foot gator hiding in the water that fed on the cockroaches. I think there are fewer apples this time around, I noted to Maviet after I finished. I laid them all out on my tent tarp, and the pile seemed smaller. I'm going to count and compare. Partly I was curious, and also so I would not have to help with the fire bear. Maviet was engrossed in his work and waved me to do the task. I found that I was right. 214 last time, and now I had just 178. Oh no, just 178 apples. I mean, it is a big difference though. Were the apples growing back slower? Or maybe the dungeon was not happy with me and how I was killing its creatures and reducing the reward. We spent half a day in the room before returning to the vine room. The vines had completely retreated back inside, and the corridor was clear. Do you have any rope? Maybe it asked. No, why would I have a rope? I said, confused. You seem to have many things hidden in your space. Rope would have been a smart thing to have. Maybe it said matter-of-factly. We could have used it to tie around your waist, and I could pull you to safety. Well, I do not have any rope, I said tersely, as rope would have been a good idea. Then again, almost everything in my space had been liberated from Legion halls in various cities. I summoned some courage and entered the vine room again. I inhaled the sweet scent and backed out of the room. I made it about 10 feet before blacking out. When I woke, maybe it was standing over me. Eric, you were only asleep for half an hour this time. I gave him a thumbs up, but as I sat up, my head spun, and I vomited. I was having the worst hangover of my life. I washed out my mouth with water from a canteen. I think I need more time between being exposed to the flowers, maybe it. It was a good half an hour before I felt right again, and the vines took another hour to retreat back into the room from the corridor. I still could have fought, but it would have been unpleasant. My next foray into the room had been taking about 8 minutes to recover under Mavia's watch, and the hangover was still prevalent, but not any worse. On every trip after going into the room, the time decreased for how long I was forced to sleep. I lost track of how many times I was exposed to the flowers, but finally I was able to inhale the sickly sweet scent and only feel slightly drowsy. It was time to try to clear the vines. Damn, that went way faster than I thought. That's very good, very good. Ooh, oh, this one is cute. A little cute thing. Oh, is that the cockroaches? Well, I assume they're going into the cockroaches room. because that's a waterfall, and I have never seen this thingy before. I did not think that that's what they looked like, but okay. Damn, he's really gonna make me say cock. Okay. Again. Chapter 155. Cock-a-doodle-doo. So funny. Oh my god, I'm cringing at myself. This time, entering the vine room, I planned to hack the vines apart with the black blade. Maybe it stood in the corridor, watching intently. He was ready to hold his breath, rush in, and carry me away if I succumbed to the flowers. As I stepped into the room, I was able to enjoy the scent of the flowers with only slightly heavy eyes. The vines stirred as they had done a dozen times before. They left their alcoves and snacked across the floor slowly. None of the flowers were on the creeping vines along the floor. I was about to slash into the creeping vines when I thought better of it. Even though my runic weapon could not be dulled, according to Constantine, I sent it to my dimensional space and retrieved 2 of the elven hand axes I had taken from the forge. The vines moved so slowly that I could walk back casually while I hacked away. Maybe it called from behind me. Eric, do not cut them into sections that are too small. I can try making rope from the vines. I grunted at the request, as all 3 alcoves in the room were trying to grasp me with their vines and pull me in to digest me. I realized that perhaps a well-placed fireball here would make quick work of them, and I had a pocket griffin rider that could cast fireballs. I tried to appease Mavius by just cutting a 5-foot sections of vines off as I went. The sound of metal striking stone rang out repeatedly on the stone floor, and sticky sap soon coated the blade and my armor. The vines seemed endless as an hour progressed, and my arm started to feel achy from the repetitive swinging. The elven hashes were also fairly dull from hundreds of strikes into the stone floor. Eric, try cutting the base in one of the alcoves, Mavis advised anxiously from the hallway. Why was he anxious? I was the one doing all the work. I danced around the vines that had thinned considerably but kept coming. I moved to the alcove on the right, cautious and ready to retreat if I might get cornered. I hacked at the base of a thick stem coming out of the floor. All the vines from the alcove stilled as I truncated this plant. Soon, I cut away the bases in the other 2 alcoves, and all the vines became still. The flowers wilted in seconds, and I guessed they needed to be harvested while the plant was alive. A stone chest appeared in the center of the room. We won, Mavius, I said tiredly. Mavius' eyes widened in anticipation as he stepped into the room. He immediately got woozy and fell into the sappy mess. I laughed. At least my friend would also be covered in creeping vine sap. I could not even smell the sickly sweetness anymore, but it must have still lingered in the air. I shattered the stone box, collecting 15 large silver coins and 1 unknown potion. I dragged my friend out of the room into the hallway. I returned to the room and attempted to use the collector at the base of the plants. A few wisps of emerald smoke formed, but the small disc would not pull it in. I thought this strange, as I remembered Mage Durandus trying to use this on the shambling mounds. Maybe I had destroyed too much of the body, or the collector could not harvest plants. I moved the vines into a pile and sent the mess to my dimensional space storage. The sap was drying, and the plates on my armor were no longer sliding easily across each other. It was getting increasingly difficult to move. Swearing to myself, I checked each alcove quickly and found nothing. Disappointed, I joined the sleeping Maviot in the corridor, removed my armor, and attempted to clean it before the sap completely dried. The oiled sections of the armor were easily cleaned, but the other sections were not, and I had to wait until they hardened enough to scrape off with a knife. Maviot woke before I finished, and as he stirred, I asked, "Have a good nap?" My head is a little foggy, but yes, thank you. He suddenly realized where he was and sprang to his feet. "Eric, I'm sorry I fell. I barely smelled the flowers and thought they all wilted." I chuckled. "It is okay, Maviot. I do not think we will try the room again. There is only 1 potion in the reward chest," I said, calming him down. His eyes turned to the room, and he groaned in disappointment. He thought the dungeon had absorbed the carnage I had wrought on the creeping vines. "Did you collect any of the vines for rope?" Maviot asked hopefully. I let him stew for a while before telling him with a grin. "I got you a little, but you will have to wait until we get to a safe room. Also, I do not know about the viability of the vines as the sap hardens. I pointed to his front, and maybe it began peeling dried sap off his soft leather clothes. After we cleaned up a bit, I asked, "Cockroach's room next? I'm going to go into the dreamscape to see if I have any more information on the creatures. Watch over me while I am gone." It did not take long for me to find some references from the ugly birds in one of the elven bestiaries, and I said they were cute. Translating the script was a slow process. Cockroaches. These avian creatures are much more dangerous than they appear. They usually form flocks of between 8 and 12 and attack as a group. The males of the species have azure blue combs and dark blue feathers. The females usually have deep brown feathers, but younger specimens can be tan. The saliva of these creatures is extremely corrosive and petrify flesh, and can petrify flesh. Multiple bites can turn a creature completely into stone. Severe damage can be done to a person's veins and arteries from a single bite and may result in death. Okay, so it's their saliva, not their... It's not if you look at him. You can look at them, but you cannot get their saliva. How do you... Because I think maybe it said that it was if you don't look at them, right? The meat of the creature is considered a delicacy in many nations. Not so much for the taste, but for the difficulty in harvesting it. Of course, you could be wrong. Many people say they cannot tell the difference between chicken and cockroaches. The saliva of the cockroaches is useful in numerous alchemical preparations, but needs to be fresh, as it will lose efficacy as soon as after the bird's death. The rest of the text discussed habitats and had a few pictures. I was also able to decipher the runes in the potion. When I exited the dreamscape, maybe it let out a relieved breath. "You were in there for 2 hours, Eric. We probably should not linger in the corridors." I stood, reached up, and patted him on the shoulder reassuringly. "We are okay. I even found an elven book detailing the cockatrice, and there is good news. Their gaze cannot turn you to stone. Only their saliva can. So we need to ensure we do not get bitten." Maybe it chewed on his lip, thinking. Maybe I confused them with a basilisk. He looked away abashedly. "I do not want to be turned into a statue." "I will count the birds before we enter. You will not have to approach the chamber." I tried to reassure the big, bald gray man. Maybe it reluctantly walked with me down the long looping corridor to the massive domed room. My God. He stayed back a good 50 feet while I scouted. The tall grass hid the birds, and I could now identify the males by their blue crests and the females by their brown. Wow! And now what? What about that? The cockroaches did not seem interested in me as they scavenged in the long grass. Maybe it impatiently rumbled. "How many do you see?" "Give me some time," I replied, scanning the area. I was envious of one of the female cockroaches bathing in the pool as it preened its feathers. Another male cockroach snapped its head up with a thick worm in its mouth before swallowing it. I watched for almost an hour, but may have missed some resting birds. 7, maybe. We can handle 7 together, right? Maybe it did not look too thrilled at the prospect. "I will give you your bow, and maybe you can kill 1 or 2 before they even reach us." He brightened at that thought. We slowly prepared to enter the room, Mavy's confidence steadily growing. One of the females approached our corridor, curious about us. As he got closer, Mavy shielded his eyes, but I was confident in my interpretation of the text. It was not a pretty bird. The closer it got, the uglier it looked. It was a cross between a turkey and a lizard, with sporadic feathers and a scaly tail. The wings were tucked into its sides but were featherless and more bat-like. "They looked more edible from a distance," I commented to Maviot. Maviot slowly opened his eyes to look at the creature. Some people had a fear of water, and Maviot had a fear of being turned into a statue. "It is ugly," he said, laughing hoarsely. The bird rushed at us in the corridor. Surprised, I readied my black blade. It launched itself into the air and came at my feet first, claws extended. The bird slammed into the archway, an invisible force preventing it from reaching us. The failed attack was accompanied by a loud clucking challenge, which caused the remaining birds to come out of the grass. 7 more joined the female, so there were 8 then. 4 males and 3 females. So my count had been off by 1. The cockroaches were agitated as they pranced around the archway, making a racket. They stood almost 3 feet tall, and I could see vicious yellow saliva on their tongues. I backed away from the room and pulled Mavis with me. Let them settle down and we can come back. They swarmed to the door this time, but not all at once. Mavis nodded. We rested and snacked on apples and berries before returning to the archway. Mavis with his bow ready, and I with the black blade. Only one of the males was close to the corridor this time. Ready? I asked, and he reluctantly nodded. I will take this one. Shoot them as they race out of the grass. I stepped into the room, and the male nearby made a huge racket to summon the family, crowing like a malevolent rooster. It launched into the air and stunned itself and slammed into my invisible shield. I quickly sidestepped and beheaded the confused cockroaches. As the head satisfyingly hit the ground, I was shocked as the body started running around, pumping out small spurts of blood. Thankfully, it had no awareness of me and ran into the wall of the chamber. The distraction almost cost me as the other 7 were rushing us. Why did I turn into a fucking bird? Did I chicken? Maybe it's bow sang, and a thick arrow thudded satisfyingly into the male leading the charge. It rolled away, clearly incapacitated, and out of the fight. Of course, our plan to take them a few at a time did not work, as the 4 trailing cockroaches took to the air to catch up. An arrow from Avia took out a second running cockroaches. Only 5 left, I said encouragingly as they closed. Mavia's bow sang again, but I was focused on my own fight and did not see where the arrow went. I set 2 shields, one high and one low, for the 2 flyers and one running at me. Why did 3 of the 4 remaining cockroaches target me? Maybe it was the much bigger target. I waited until they slammed into my shields and stepped quickly to the side. One of the flyers tumbled toward me after striking the air disc. I timed my swing, beheaded the confused bird before it hit the ground, and dodged the decapitated head as it nearly hit me. The runner recovered quickly and dashed toward me. A quick air shield cast through my foot was supposed to halt the female's charge, but it flapped its wings, launching itself over the shield and going for my face. I did not want to risk the beak getting loose, so I used my dimensional space to remove the head and deflected the headless body with my round shield. Taking in the chaos, I yelled to Maviath. Above you, Maviath! The other flyer that I had deflected off my shield was now above him and closing in. While I had been busy, Maviath had dropped his bow and crushed the other cockroaches with his hammer. Maviath went into a rapid forward roll, his massive body moving faster than it probably had a right to, and he came up facing the other direction, already swinging his hammer. The cockatrice, with claws outstretched, crumbled under the force of the hammer blow, and was thrown a good distance away. The cockatrice's body was crushed, and it struggled to move, clucking pitifully. The fight had only taken a few seconds, but my heart was still racing from the combat. A few clucks from dying cockatrices overcame the noise of the waterfall. Stay on guard until the reward chest shows. I walked around and carefully dispatched the mostly dead birds. Only one of the ones with an arrow in it put up any fight, but the arrow shaft greatly hampered its movement. We stayed away from the tall grass around the pool for now, and I used the collector on the cockatrices while Mavis remained on watch. I think I see a box on the shore, Mavis said excitedly, as I kneeled over the first male cockatrice I had killed, removing the collector from my minimalist packed backpack. I knew Mavis was not excited about the treasure. It was just that the chest signaled that all the petrifying birds had been killed, and he was no longer at risk of being turned to stone. The blue smoke was thick, and I watched the essence form on the collector. A rich brown apex essence formed with swirls of gray moving in the sphere, an earth affinity essence. The rest of the roosters yielded major earth essences. The 4 male cockatrices all yielded clear major essences that could be mistaken for glass balls. These were ether tolerance essences that were useful in resisting magic. It was an excellent haul, and maybe it might want the earth essences to improve its shape stone spell form. Together we walked to the pool in the center of the chamber. The cooling mist from the splashing waterfall was welcome. There were 4 nests in the grass, but no eggs. A few green leaves sprouted from the ground that are recognized as wild onions. Somewhere under the soil were fat worms, and I wondered if they would also yield an essence. We reached the shore, and I shattered the stone box to reveal a dozen silver coins and a balled up dark gray cloak. A piece of clothing was slightly disappointing, and after unfurling it, it was too small for Mavia to wear and too small for me to wear over my armor as well. It would fit me without my armor, but Mavia would probably be upset if I wore this over the manticore cloak he made for me. I sent it to my dimensional space. What now? Mavia asked over the noise of the water. Now we bathe, I said happily as I walked into the shallow water with my armor still on. Wow, so now it's pool party time in the cock room. Great. Why not? Well, that also went pretty well, I would say. They put up a little bit of a fight. The wine room was disappointing, and no Rallia yet. So maybe we'll get Rallia and a pool party next time. Very exciting. Very exciting. Yeah. Ugh. Okay then. Then we will end the stream there. My lungs are still recovering, believe it or not. And I will be back again tomorrow to read more. I like these chapters though. It was a little bit slower today, I must say. But then I'm also not like super into fighting, even though I feel like I'm way more fine with the fighting in this novel than previous novels. So I still like it. I still like it. These were still funny. These and talk to the children. That was nice. Before we kill them, of course. And I like that we told Mavis more about our spell powers. Magic? Magic. So everything, still a lot of nice stuff. But now we shall end it here for today. And we will play some Wawas. Fighting is quick here. I like that. I prefer that all the way. More of that, please. No dragged out fucking fighting. So thank you so much for coming to the stream. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as me. Feel free to go follow me on my socials everywhere and join the Discord server to know about all the latest updates. Yeah. And then I hope you have a nice rest of your day. I should be back tomorrow, so I will see you then. Hey, bye bye. Hello, Tack. You made it in time. Have a good day, JP. Thank you for the lurks. Hey,